Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're back with our weekly crypto news with Michael, our head of written research over at the platform. Michael, there's been heaps happening in the political world that's now tying into crypto more and more, and AI and all this stuff. But what are your general thoughts before we get into the news items?
It's the merger between our world, which we always thought, to be honest, we thought it would happen, but I just didn't think it would happen this way. Um, but yeah, we're at the full apex right now where crypto and macro tradfi are all starting to merge together. We're going to dive into it today.
And AI as well. So yeah, let's
Yep.
get into it.
Okay. Well, we just want to start off, I guess, one second here. I can share my screen properly. So just overlooking on the markets in general, like we're just chopping at the moment a little bit. Like I know that there's a lot of bullish sentiment right now on Bitcoin. Like you can see a lot of the maxi Bitcoin community are all just about to say that it's about to take off. I think on charts, like some of the people that I follow are saying that there's a possibility that we do have maybe a dip under 100, and if we do, it's time to just pack the bags because after that, the consensus is that we're about to rip, and I think it's all pretty much just based around money printing, which we're going to go into today. So, the angle that I've been sort of researching this week is obviously money printing is what's on the agenda. It's what's on the palette, and the fact that Elon now has, he's had what 4 months or 5 months of Doge. He was able to cut a couple of 100 billion, and now he's left. And clearly, we've seen why he's left because the second that he has left, he's now teed off on the fact that the US is literally just to go and destroy all of the gains that he made by this $1.5 trillion bill that they're going to put in. And he instantly got on Twitter just to say that this is an abomination and anyone involved in it should be ashamed of themselves. Um, which is an interesting play in of itself. Like I know people are pretty divisive on Elon himself, and I'm not going to lie, I've oscillated back and forth between fanboy to like ad nauseum blocking him like on everything, so I don't have to see his name, to going back to like being a lover to I've oscillated back and forth on Elon here. Um, and the fact that he's like looks like he's taken a principled stance here. The fact that he's here trying to cut cash, but now it seems like whether you're Democrat, Republican, Labor, Liberal, like no one's got the stomach to actually have a balanced budget. Like no
Mm.
one really cares about austerity or sensible fiscal responsibility. Everyone just wants number go up, and we're just going to print money, and that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and then straight away Palantir and Peter Thiel get put to the forefront as if you're cutting government and government employees and different factions of the government, but it's all just going to get replaced with this crazy AI. So yeah, watch Evil Elites if you haven't watched this week's episode.
Yeah, and all going to end up having like just not governments, but we're just going to have an AI that we're subservient to. It seems like that's the path that everyone's just absolutely full steam ahead trying to get towards. But I
Mm.
started going down this rabbit hole here. So if you look at like national debt, this all ties into Bitcoin. This is the whole premise of Bitcoin. And it's kind of the dark adoption path that I didn't think that we would take. I thought that this would be like a jubilant thing. Everyone realizes how great Bitcoin is, but it's pretty dystopian, like why adoption is actually popping off here. And so you look at like US debt, you can see per capita what everyone's debt is. The UK just per capita nuts, France nuts, Germany nuts, like the type of debt that some of these countries are in. And when you look at like debt to GDP, like the orange number bad. The orange number is bad here. So, 112% of the GDP of the US is debt. And so that just to dumb that down, if all of the money that the US produces in 1 year went to paying down their debt, they couldn't do it in a year of every single thing that that country produces. And that's not factoring all the other liabilities that people got to eat and all to turn the power on and everything like that. If you were just to take all of the profit and revenue that this country produced, they couldn't pay down their debt in a year. And this is where it starts to get to scary levels. Um, and then you look at like crypto adoption. We're trending here, and I know that you can see the bear market and the bull market types of peaks and troughs here a little bit. But if you go take this further back, even to 2017, we're like sub 5%.
Mm.
So the amount of percentage of US citizens who own a cryptocurrency, even now sitting at nearly a third of all people. And this is without stablecoin regulation. This is without like really the influence of the SEC, like clearing a lot of this sector. This is the rebels right here. This is people who are laughing in the face of what the government was telling them and saying, we want to hold crypto anyway. What's going to happen now that it's like being green lit because it's their only path to like get companies to buy their debt because for stable coins? It's
Yeah.
mental.
Yeah, and that's on the individual level, but as we'll see shortly, it's happening at the business level with treasuries, and it's just going to be an absolute race to the exits if one of those big countries starts to talk about defaulting on their debt. And we've seen the shakiness in the Japanese bond market, and if it now goes to the US and they start this strategic reserve and try to hyperinflate everything away through Bitcoin, it's just going to be crazy.
Absolute madness. So yeah, I mean, like we saw how bullish this is, like you're saying, from institutions that there's more ETFs in Bitcoin were bought over the last period than there was in gold. And so we know that gold's already hit some pretty crazy highs of late. And there's always been the whispers that, China had been accelerating their gold purchasing and there'd been heaps of gold leaving, like London banks headed back to the US. But Wall Street seems to be more interested in Bitcoin right now, which I mean is great for us, but kind of dark. Again, it's kind of dark in the scheme of macro finance. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I've
if you want
spoken
to jump
about gold a
in.
lot over the years, but it's kind of, yes, it's always been money, and I still think it's a decent investment. But if we just go into this geopolitical environment where these countries don't trust each other and they're failing on debt, what was that news article the other day that there was one country in Africa, wasn't it, that had found, $10 trillion worth of gold that they can mine over the next few years or something. So it's all like, oh, we've got this much. And then even this big audit that was meant to happen in Fort Knox, haven't heard anything more about that. So it's all just
No,
so wishy-washy. Yeah.
that got shut down quick smart, didn't it? GameStop is the next one who's put, was it $500 million into gold to try and like shore up its own reserves.
Into
Um,
Bitcoin, not gold, mate. Come on.
sorry, my bad. Gold on the brain. Into Bitcoin, yeah, into
Yeah, yeah.
Bitcoin. So clearly these companies are starting to see that they're sitting on ice cubes if they're going to sit on cash, and if they're trying to expand their business, exactly, where they're going to put their revenue.
Yeah.
Um, you pointed this one out to me as well. Panama Canal thinking about taking crypto for payments, which is a really weird one in and of itself as well. Like because we know that Trump talked about maybe taking this over again.
Yeah, so nothing confirmed yet by any verified sources, but it has been floating around on X for a few weeks now. And this all ties into maybe what's happening in the Middle East with Israel wanting to build another canal, and this just been such a huge trade hub with all the geopolitical tension. So maybe they will go with Bitcoin as something more neutral if all these tensions with the US and the Middle East continue. So that would be another amazing news item if we get confirmation.
Especially if you're like a BRICS country or something like that that's trying to, or even like a Switzerland who's trying to stay neutral in this East versus West inevitability hot war that seems to everyone wants to get to. If you're trying to stay neutral and say, well, I'm not going to denominate in dollars or yuan, I'm going to denominate in Bitcoin and just try and play the middle line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, to pivot from Bitcoin slightly over to the Ethereum world, smart contract world. So SEC now seems to be teetering on the path of allowing staking. And for those who don't know, the ETH ETF's main, I guess, draw down was that you weren't allowed to receive staking rewards inside the ETF. So all of that ETH that got locked up, you're actually foregoing the staking reward opportunity. So I think a lot of people who would have held ETH didn't because of that drawback, but that seems like it could get clarified here shortly.
Yeah, so good for all the proof of stake chains. For if Solana's the next to get the ETF or SUI. We also saw that bit of news from Stacks, which hit the market a bit hard that they were going to be increasing emissions and that type of thing. So I wonder if that all ties in with Stacks being that fully regulated US based ICO, and if they maybe knew that this was coming and they want to push for an ETF. So yeah, it's good news for all altcoins and staking for sure.
And we've seen this week that Ethereum's version of MicroStrategy has popped off. So the company was called, it's just escaped me for a minute here, SBET. So there's the ticker, SharpLink Gaming. So I think what this is it's Joe Lubin at Consensus. He's come in as the lead investor and they've bought effectively like a shell company that's already trading on the market that maybe isn't doing that crash hot. And they're just going to supercharge it with investment and just buy ETH or buy
Yes.
the ETH or the ETH ETF. So they're trying to copy the Michael Saylor strategy, which isn't a bad idea, to be honest, because the narrative around ETH had been sort of a bit meh. I'm personally still think it's got like obviously a very bullish future, but there's a lot of naysayers out there, and so something like this it's just narrative. It just drives narrative, and if there's a constant buyer there.
And another good way to get exposure, our performance to Ethereum on the traditional stock market for sure.
So to pivot slightly into just like general crypto token shenanigans, Pump.fun. So I don't know if you paid much attention to this over the last 2 days online, but this has been very controversial because Pump.fun has been the biggest revenue producing app like ever in blockchain. Um, Obscene amounts of money that they've been able to produce. The team themselves are just a bunch of 20-year-olds. And it seems now that the shininess of the meme coin run seems to be wearing off. Now they're deciding to launch a token. And so this was not received well for the most part. People saw it as like a bit of a value extraction. A lot of people got pretty bearish Solana as a result of raising $1 billion from VCs to launch at 4 billion valuation. And what's going to happen to these tokens? It's just going to get thrown on the market, or
yeah, I think this one's pretty ridiculous, to be honest. Like, weren't there plans that they were heading in the direction to share revenue with all their users and give back to the ecosystem? And then these 20-year-olds turn around and go, we're going to raise $1 billion at 4 billion valuation. Like, who's going to buy? Yeah, just don't like this one. That's not a good look.
I think this could go one of two ways, and it could get real ugly. So I've seen a lot of people just like really cautiously viewing the Solana ecosystem right now. I mean, you get your old Solana bulls I saw online who are just saying, "Oh no, people are going to trade in and out of it. It's just going to pump the price of Sol." But generally, the sentiment around this has been pretty bearish.
Yeah.
So I guess the other one that's interesting is ETH now again is continuing the upgrade. So they've come now with a new R&D team. So the whole narrative around Ethereum now is no longer the L2 centric roadmap. They have continued their full pivot towards we need to scale the main chain. So L1, blobs, UX. So again, everyone's seen the writing on the wall that the fact that Ethereum has not really broken all-time highs, well, not really, it hasn't broken all-time highs yet this cycle. There's a little bit of like code red stuff going on here, and everyone's like scrambling to make sure, okay, well, let's give the people what they want, and let's try and like pump the narrative a little bit. So positive, I still think, but yeah, you know why they're doing it.
And this is kind of what we foresaw last year when I sold all my ETH layer 2s for this reason kind of thing. So yeah, this is another one that's been good from research leading to good investments.
Look at Polygon, which was like the darling last cycle. Like everyone couldn't get enough of it. And you don't even hear about it talked about at all anymore. Like no one cares. Like no one's paying attention. Yeah. So probably better for ETH in the long run, but yeah, not great if you're heavy into L2 tokens right now.
Yeah.
Moving to away from the L1s to kind of more on the DeFi app. So MakerDAO has completed its full rebrand into Sky. I don't love it. I don't love the name. I'm a little bit attached here because MakerDAO was like the first DeFi app that I ever used back in 2017. So they've rebranded, but they've got some pretty juicy rewards here. So changed obviously all of their branding around DAI as well to USDS. Again, don't love it. I think DAI was a much better name. But I think there's all about like a level of compliance here that they're trying to follow this stablecoin bill. They want to be US compliant. Maybe they know something that we don't. But for those that are DeFi users and are looking for a yield, some pretty interesting stuff going on over there in the MakerDAO world.
Yeah, and that last one for me is just more worrying about just the path that Rune set out on. The founder of MakerDAO, to build a centralized central bank, and just how quickly all that's gone out the window as everyone's just like sees this CBDC coming and then just wants to be synthetic dollars instead, and we've just gone away from the traditional censorship resistant values. So yeah.
For me, the red flag came when they started allowing like Tether and USDC to be collateral for DAI. It's like why? Like why? What are we doing here? It's just trying to juice like financial products for the sake of juicing financial products. I think if you had like a pure crypto decentralized token backed asset, that was what the dream was. So unfortunate, but I still think that these tokens will do well once the cycle pumps.
Fantastic. Well, guys, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au for our free newsletter, all our premium crypto research, or our VIP services. And Michael, we'll chat to you again next week. Cheers.